Hello everybody, this is Bradley from RaceBeacon, and today in this video we've got a new update on the Oscar Piastri contract situation. Now, in this video, I said that it would probably be the penultimate video because all we're waiting on now will be an announcement from McLaren. It seems like the FIA contract courts have decided Oscar Piastri can drive for McLaren. Brilliant, sorted. Well, that part might still be true, but as this recent news from Reuters shows, Alpine is preparing to go to court in London for the Piastri case. They are looking to demand a refund on all of the money that they invested in his career. He has been a part of their driver academy for 4 years now. They have helped fund drives and tests as well. That is a lot of money. You're talking tens of millions of dollars in investment here. And if he refuses to drive for them in 2023 with Alonso moving to Aston Martin, then they're going to be quite annoyed, and evidently they want their money back. So this would be in the High Court in London, so it would be quite big news, actually. Especially for F1, normally when you end up in the High Court, something has gone horribly wrong. It's also incredibly bad publicity for both the team and the driver. As a general rule of thumb, you don't want to be going to court as a sportsman. That's just a general PR move right there. So we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into this article in just a second. But what's going to make this really interesting is, does this end up after the summer breaks? This is all set to be after the summer break. If it ends up in a settlement between the driver and the team, obviously, you know, there's a lot of money on both sides here. None of these guys are struggling to make ends meet, let's say. So there's definitely money on both sides where they could reach a settlement. However, I really don't think Piastri would want to do that. They probably believe that they have a case here, and handing over money unnecessarily, why would you do that, especially considering it will be dozens of tens of millions of dollars. So here is the article. Its Piastri case could end up in the High Court, says Alpine boss. So we're just going to skim over the most important information and quotes from this article. So here's a general summary, as we sort of know already. Alpine could seek millions in compensation at the London High Court if Oscar Piastri this is the key bit, if Oscar Piastri refuses to race for them next season, indicating that they still believe the door is open for Oscar to drive for them next year. FIA contract court, supposedly, again, we've not had an official statement on that, but that was the rumours from the top journalists in the paddock, so we'll stick with that for now. And something I do want to point out before we dive a bit further into this, a lot of this could be positioning by Alpine, trying to show that they're incredibly strong. They believe that their contract is, as the famous quote now, watertight, which it seems it may not be, but you never know. They're trying to position themselves here for a case. So here's the main quotes. Szafnauer said all the indications from their base in Paris were that Alpine were prepared to take legal action once the sport's August break was over. Going to the High Court is over 90% certain. That's what we'll do. And I'm going to be honest, I think that might be an over-exaggeration. Part of me still doesn't see this ending up going as far as the High Court. However, it is a very, very viable option for them if they do want to pursue this and the driver and team don't reach a settlement. I think the only way we see it going this far is if both the driver and team, obviously they don't reach that settlement because they both believe they're in the right. And I do think, from what we've heard so far, and what Piastri, he's only tweeted one thing, and that was very strongly worded. There's no chance he wrote that by himself. I believe that both parties here absolutely believe they are in the right. The American said he contacted Formula One's contract recognition board last week, but this avenue might not be sufficient, which is probably relating to the story that we covered earlier in the week. If the CRB says your license is only valid to Alpine, and then Piastri says, that's great, but I'm never driving for them, I'll just sit out a year, then you've got to go to the High Court for compensation. And if I'm being brutally honest here, I think Alpine are probably in the right. If you've funded a junior driver's career, believing that he has to follow a contract to drive for you if needed, and then he goes ahead and refuses to drive for you when you need someone in that seat, I actually think they do have a case there. Obviously, it's going to come down to how watertight these contracts actually are. And without being able to read them, without being experts in contract law, hell, even if I had them, I don't think I'll be able to decipher half of it. It's going to be incredibly hard to even start to speculate on who could win here. For all of us normal people on the side, I think the main thing to look out for is the positioning. Because if someone's coming out a lot stronger than someone else, that could indicate that they might actually be a bit more on the ropes than you think, because they need the media clout behind them. The team that's often incredibly silent, it either knows they're completely wrong, or they think they've got a really solid case. So as we see here, there has been speculation that the two teams will ultimately come to an understanding that could see race winner Ricciardo return to Alpine, the Australians' employers before McLaren. And that's something that's not completely out the window either. Why don't these teams, it's not impossible that they genuinely come up with a completely legitimate switch deal. And to be honest, I don't think any team would particularly be losing out in that case. I don't think it's the worst case scenario. Alpine get a very experienced, still very talented driver, and McLaren, they get the driver they've wanted, clearly. So let's put some figures on this in this next part of the article. It's heavy spending, so that's what they're going with here. A Formula 1 power unit alone costs 1.75 million euros, which, again, I cannot express too much money. They are incredibly complex things. And there is also the expense of a dedicated test team of mechanics and engineers who need flights, cars and hotels. That's a lot of money there. He's done quite a few tests as well. And I think what really sets it here as well is the Piastri camp can't even argue that the team got a lot of data that they then used to benefit themselves, because you're not allowed to test modern parts in these, driver development sessions. So the team didn't even gain anything from these sessions. It was them purely funding his driver development, giving him some time at the track to hone in his skills in a Formula 1 car. Which then, if you're going to refuse to drive for that team that funded you, and then sign for their nearest rivals, I can see why Alpine are quite annoyed. The last part of this article does have some more quotes saying, "We haven't sat down with the accountants to figure out everything we've spent. We will have to do that if we go to the High Court." Well, obviously. He said Piastri has signed a heads of terms agreement with Alpine in November last year, which set out the path for a 2023 race debut. Now, how, legally binding all of that is, again, that's something that the courts will probably have to decide on. The deal included the possibility of being loaned out to another team for a year, and this is where we heard that 2-year or 1 year at Williams rumour floating around, I believe. I don't think he was ever going to get loaned out to a McLaren, even Mercedes, hell, even Alfa Romeo, probably. It would have been one of the backmarker teams where he wouldn't get in the way of Alpine, I'd imagine. And then the last part of the article basically just talks about how all of this has come about. But I don't think this last part of the article is particularly right, because there's no direct quote in it, and I think it's more of a comment piece. Them saying that this all happened because of Alonso making that shock decision. I don't think so. I think this was long in the works before this. There was already that pre-agreement in place. Put it this way, Zach Brown and Mark Webber, the agent for Oscar Piastri, have not slashed this out in one day. This has been long in the works, and I believe both sides absolutely know what their legal position is going to be. And to be honest, one of the sides probably know whether they're right or wrong, but they're not going to admit it. Will this end of the settlement? Will it go as far as the high courts? Let me know what you guys think. It's pretty big news, and there's a lot of money involved in this. Ultimately as well, do you see McLaren and Alpine coming to some kind of agreement to stop this going to the high court? Because McLaren inheriting a PR damaged driver in Piastri, who's just spent months in the high court with contract disputes, and Alpine as well, the brand damage that it has for them, it's not beneficial for either camp. So do you see this coming down to a team by team settlement, driver and team settlement, or will it just go to the high court? And we'll see what the courts say. So if you've made it this far, that means you're definitely interested in the driver transfer market, or you're a legal nerd. Either way, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for every single twist and turn in this silly season. We'll be bringing any updates to this story that we see at any point during the course of this month and beyond. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also ring the notification bell to get the latest news as it drops. But, guys, as ever, until next time, goodbye.